Hello Malaysia and welcome back to Monday's edition of Bernama. Today, Jared Ratnam, we have with me, I have two very interesting guests. Joe Siddiq, the festival director of the Borneo Rainforest Fringe Festival 2019, but he's more known for the Georgetown Festival, the man behind the Georgetown Festival. And with him is Emanuela Shinta, the co-founder of the International Indigenous Film Festival. So I was kind of nervous there, just introducing you, Joe. Seriously, yeah, seriously. Thank you very much for making it to our set. And Manuel, I just heard that you've come in all the way from Germany for this.
Yeah.
Via Kalimantan.
Via Kalimantan. You're jet lagged. Yeah, but you're here to do what you need to do. Talk about what you've been after all these years and the things you've been fighting for, the Indigenous Arts Festival, or Film Festival. Festival. So tell us a little bit about how these two meld, the Rainforest Festival, which I'm a big part of, and the Indigenous Festival.
Well, we run the Rainforest Fringe Festival, and I read of what David McCullough and Emmanuel's dad been doing in Kalimantan, and then they brought the film festival to Bali and then to India. And I felt as if Kuching could be a point of stop. And I got in touch with them and we Skyped.
So in India, where? Was it
It's in Bhubaneswar, the capital of Odisha.
Right.
And you never think of indigenous India. So I thought, wow, what great work. And talking to her and how young, pretty activist, not angry. It's very unusual to find an activist who's not angry. So I said, I'd like to work with them. So I'm hoping that this becomes a yearly thing where we focus on indigenous stories and stories that matter.
Right. I think we have to go back and find out why you started the Indigenous Film Festival. What brought about this spark in you, this fire within you to start something this big?
Well, I'm just thinking about how there's so many narratives that need to be changed in our current society, especially when we talk about indigenous people. And me, as a young person, I mean, now we have this access a lot of it.
Two young people here. Sorry, three.
Thank you.
Young people, we have a lot of access to media, online, offline, and technology. And I'm just seeing that as a strength for young people. So that's how I see the importance of films, or I would say audiovisual media, as a tool to change the narrative. So that's how I started in 2014 with just small screenings with my teams in the grassroots level in Kalimantan, and now it becomes bigger.
That's where it all begins, grassroots, isn't it? Yeah, but when we talk about narratives, you want to change narratives. What narratives do you think she's talking about?
Well, it's important, like Sarawak, for instance, has 27 indigenous groups. And we in West Malaysia don't even understand the word of Orang Asal. We think, it's only 4 or 5 in West Malaysia. And I thought, wow, if Sarawak can take a part in this bigger picture and how important it is for the country to understand the narrative of what is Orang Asal, who is the Orang Asal, and what are the stories that they're trying to tell. And especially now with land rights and things that matter. Environment. Right.
So when you talk about the narrative, Emanuela, what in the narrative irks you or makes you feel uncomfortable?
Well, there is a lot actually, but I just take one example. Like there is a saying that some people are born with the privilege and indigenous people are not born with the privilege. But I would say, like, I stand against that narrative because I was born indigenous as an indigenous person, but I do have privilege. I do have power. So this is the narrative that I want to change, and not only from the inside the communities, but also to the outside of the communities, to the world. That's what I say.
Right. But it's always from within. If I were to start a festival, say from where I come from, Seremban Negeri Sembilan, people in Seremban won't be interested in it. How do you get people interested in it?
Well, it's quite tricky.
Maybe a select few of us who like reading and understanding our culture and where we come from, we take these things seriously. But by and large, people like, I've got to work, why do I even want to go watch a film about this or watch an exhibition about this? So how do you spur that interest?
What thing that I believe is everyone interested in the story, like the theme that we say, stories that matter. But it's not about like how you package the story, but how authentic is your story is. That's what I believe, and that's why we choose these films and video as a tool to deliver the stories. And with audiovisual, it's really reducing the gap between the ones that tell the story and the ones that listen.
So how do you define authenticity here?
Well, I mean, picking on that first, accessibility, making it accessibility for your people as opposed for tourists or for foreigners. How do I identify what? Sorry?
Authenticity.
Authenticity. Well, we had to pick. Different people, different stories, different way of storytelling.
Yeah.
Right.
It's inclusive. Right. It's very hard to say, hey, your story is wrong because you're white. How can you tell the story of an indigenous person?
Correct.
I think that's wrong. I think we should allow everyone the right to tell a story.
Yeah.
And take it for yourself, whether you agree or not.
Yeah, that's how in Indigenous Film Festival that we have indigenous filmmakers that make the stories about their own communities. We have indigenous filmmakers that make the stories about other indigenous community, and there is also the non-indigenous filmmakers that make stories but not about indigenous community but for indigenous community. I think this is something that we need to highlight about it.
Very inclusive and different.
Right. So it started in about, say, circa 2014, 2015. 4 years have gone by. It's going to be 5 years now. They say, you know, with any festival or what exhibition, after the 5th year mark, you can start to breathe. Are you starting to breathe and relaxing a little bit more now?
Well, I think, you know, like when you get higher and the wind becomes like harder. But the good thing is we always find the way how to work together. And I'm so happy that I have Joe Sidek here as a good allies for the communities. And we also have David Metcalf, our partner. And it's really exciting because we have seen so many people coming on the board and work together in this journey.
We're going to take a look at a poster. Our studio director Fika is going to put on a poster. We're going to take a look at it, and you guys can probably tell us what
the films that will be screened.
Oh, these are some of the films. So GIRA, what does GIRA mean?
This is from West Kalimantan. This is from West Kalimantan. It's made by indigenous filmmakers from West Kalimantan.
Right. And well, how long, I mean, does it take them to come up with an idea like this and come up with a film?
Well, it's different depending on the films that we made. Some make short films, some make a long documentary, and some can finish it like in 3 or 4 months, some just in 1 month. So what I see is every indigenous filmmakers, they have these passions, like I want to tell this story, and it triggers them to finish the story, even like from production and post-productions.
Right. I think what's important about the stories, and I'm just picking out words from an interview Jesse had with Bobby Roth the other day. Bobby Roth is the guy who created Grey's Anatomy and Lost and all that. So I was speaking to him, and he said, if you can make a film universal, whether it's about indigenous people,
it is,
because it has to relate to someone's life. You know, if I'm watching it, it has to relate to my life. Have filmmakers within your circles found that universality, so to speak?
Sure. That's why we keep pushing this as a network and platform to change, to listen, and to learn. Because when these filmmakers coming together, we see a lot of different stories, and everyone can relate to someone else's story. I just take these examples that we have with Adivasi communities in India. They have the struggles. Indigenous community have really strong struggles, and when they see the films that made from other filmmakers, other communities, they say like, oh, I can relate to that, and I got strength, I got inspiration for that. And that's also happened to others, that non-indigenous communities. And we have heard a lot of testimonies from those who attended, whether they involved as a filmmakers or attendants. They say like, I can relate to that. This story is important, especially about environmental, about these traditions and cultures, and about life.
So you're very passionate about it. Joe, you're equally as passionate with regards to the arts and, you know, telling stories of the people.
I like to think so.
Right.
But you know, like I was going to say to you, that it never stops. You know, it never gets easier. After 9 years of running,
how so?
Well, after running 9 years, you just Georgetown Festival, you just learn that, oh, I didn't do this right, I didn't do that right, I didn't do this right. So you want to keep on going because it's like a baby. You nurture the baby's growth, and you worry about the baby when baby is 50.
Right.
So I think you don't stop. It doesn't get easier. It gets harder, I think, because your benchmark is higher, your goalpost is higher. You want to make much more of a difference.
But when you talk about indigenous people, it's very interesting that there's always this question that comes about with regards to the government. So you're in Kalimantan. How much support is the government giving you with regards to doing what you're doing, or do you not need support from the government?
Well, what I will say is this is one of the narratives that we want to change, because there is a narrative that indigenous communities are on the other sides against the government, and I think this is not right. because to create a better future, we really need to accept, learn, listen, and reshape our narrative together and work together. This is what I'm trying to do in Kalimantan. I mean, I said, oh, we already have support. Oh, we don't have support. I say, we come into that process and work on that to achieve that goal.
So Sarawak is a good place to be, because Sarawak, no one is dominant. We have the Malays, we have the indigenous people, we have the Chinese food chows, and it's the Malaysia that we want. You know, I think everybody's allowed to tell their stories.
So are you alluding to us being dominant here in West
basically
Malaysia?
Yes. I think
there's
here we take for granted that we don't even talk about the orang aslis. They're so marginalized. But if you look collectively in Sarawak, First Nations of the world, New Zealand, Canada, Australia, the people are really marginalized. But in Sarawak, in Sabah, the indigenous people are not marginalized. You hear stories of the Penang.
So the question is, what is the secret? I'll get to that in a while. But apparently there's a very interesting collaboration with FINAS ongoing. How much has FINAS come out to help with this project?
Well, I think it's new energy of FINAS.
Hans Isaac and all that.
They have Nadira on board. They have a whole new group of people looking at the narrative again, where how do we shape the nation's films, you know, or even Suryani in Kraftangan and all that. I think the nation is learning and trying to change. And trying to find a way to navigate the old system and a new system. I think it's healthy.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Just like in Indonesia, the word indigenous is not recognized by the country, but we try to bring these stories and we get into the words, you know. And what's happening now in Indonesia, it is said when you don't have the censorship, you know, like you cannot show your film in the cinema. But we did that. We show our films in the cinema.
How did you make that possible?
Well, I would say like you need to try, because the narrative against, hey, indigenous films will never come into the screens or come into the cinema. But when we try, we contact it, we pursue that, we got it. And they even encourage, come on, make more story.
I remember some years ago, me and a friend of mine from Radio Pay, we went and watched this movie called Rabbit Proof Fence. That was about the indigenous people in Australia. And it was a free screening. You know how many people there were in the theatre? Amazing. You know how many people? 2. Just me and my friend.
Where was this?
This was in Kuala Lumpur, you know, and you know, people are not very accepting of stuff like this.
Well, it's because we're not used to the story. It's not our story. Again, it's not our story because we don't understand how the indigenous suffering there. But if you look at our own people here, so I think it's about sharing new stories and getting an understanding of people, really. I think Sarawak will be a great place to start this indigenous story, because they're not marginalized and they can share that with the rest of the world.
So you've, from the time we begin this interview up until now, have 3 times mentioned that Sarawak is not marginalized. What in there is the secret to this recipe?
I think being inclusive, also the component of the different races there. The Malays, I think about 20%, the Dayaks is 40%. They are and the respect of individual communities. There's no dominancy. I'm a Muslim, I'm a Malay, and they don't use the race card or the religion card, which I think is very healthy there.
Now, how do you think we can further use that as a base to, you know, we always say we need to look at Sarawak as a model and build Malaysia on this, but everyone's been talking and no one's been doing it.
So you do it in small ways. You run little small festivals, you show people, you take 1% at a time. Jesus said, one day at a time.
Okay. Now it's time for you all to sell whatever that's coming your way, you know.
Okay, come to Kuching.
Okay, this camp. Let's look at this.
We have the Indigenous Film Festival from the 5th to the 12th. We have a tattoo ink showcase. We have Lembaran Mas. We have like over 80 programs of people all about the rainforest of Sarawak. Come and join us.
Right. Yeah, so there's one more time. Slow it down a little bit.
Excited.
Excited. Slow it down. So we have once again on day 1.
Oh, sorry, we have the opening, which is Lembaran Mas, a fashion show with Datuk Sri Bernat Chandran and Tom Abang Safi and Tanoti on Songket and Keringkam. And the Malay communities of Sarawak, a lot of West Malaysians don't know.
Right. The lady who's been doing a lot of work for Puah Kumbu, what's her name?
Welin.
Yes. Will she be there?
No, we've worked with her for the first 2 years. So again, the traditional fabrics. But nobody knows about the Malay history of Sabah and Sarawak. So we're putting that up front in Asas Melayu. We have the Indigenous Film Festival. We have a tattoo festival. We have invoices.
Tattoo boleh ke?
We have people coming in from Canada, Papua New Guinea, Samoa. Why not?
Well, okay.
It's part of their culture.
Right.
In West Malaysia, it may be seen wrong for the Muslims, but for the indigenous people, it's part of their ritual, their tradition, and their culture.
Okay.
Who are us to deny that?
Very important. Is there a website one can go and get some information from?
So it's www.rainforestfringe.com.
That's www.rainforestfringe.com. You can get all the information from there. Before I let you guys go, we've got about a minute and a half left. Emanuela, what's your message to all of us, since you've flown all the way from Germany to Kalimantan, came here? Please, your message to us about understanding indigenous people, or understanding just our surroundings, being mindful of the people we live with.
I would just say everything is possible, and no one can do all things, but someone always can do something. And it's very important for every single of us to find our role in this narrative, in this movement, and in our common collective goals to make a change in our society. So just find your role and do it. Like, if you want to come, please come. That's also one part of the roles. Like, please come to the festivals in Kuching.
Joe, you've been doing this for quite a while now. Whatever you've been doing, just spreading the arts, and you've always been very positive about this. And there's no skepticism in you. You always see the glass half full. Why? How did you become like this?
Because I think there will always be problems with money or government or censorship or other. I think you've got to be positive. You've got to love and do it for the right reasons. There must be a meaning to what you do, and who you're doing it for.
Right. On that note, we'll have to cut you off, and thank you very much for being here.
So much.
It was a pleasure and an honor to have you in the studios. Once again, if you want more information, all you have to do is go to rainforestfringe.com, and you can get all the information you need with regards to the Fringe Festival happening at the Rainforest Festival in Sarawak, or Kuching, Sarawak. With that, I'm Jared Ratnam signing off. You have a great day ahead, and stay with us right here on the Bernama News Channel. Bye-bye.